Let's continue learning our reels and same time turns. And this time from a bit of a different perspective. So let's face this way together. And we're going to be learning with our poi spinning like this. But let's start, so get your poi ready, but we're going to start with the body. If we're standing like this, like we're along our tracks, if you shift your right foot in front, you're turned this way. If you shift your right foot back, you're this way. Vice versa with the left foot. So you can really easily pivot this way or pivot this way to change your orientation to the planes. So for instance, if we get our poi spinning forwards, and right now your feet are planted with me like this. If you step the right foot forwards, you're ready to shift to your left and back. So you could whack a golf ball and follow a rainbow to come back to planting your feet. If you put your left foot in front, you're ready to pass your toes at the bottom or over the top just in front. So from here you can, and again, what you want to make sure is that your poi are coming down what's in front of you. So for me, I think, oh, there's a bridge. I'm going to get my poi coming down that bridge. See what I mean, right? In front of me, they're coming down the bridge. So I think, okay, I want to make sure I'm practicing my turns easily. So I shift my right foot in front, so I'm getting ready to turn left. And I can low pass my toes, high over the top, toes over the top, toes over the top. And see how that feels, how fluid that is. Then shift the other way, do the same thing. Pass the toes in front, then back over the top in front. Toes in top, toes in top. And again, at first focus on doing as little with your arms as possible, so it's coming from the motion of your body. And then you can, if you want, add movement with control. And figure out, does it feel easier on this side or easier on this side? Toes and back, toes and back, toes and back, toes and back. And if one of those feels more difficult, like you haven't practiced it as much, practice that one more. So maybe it's on this side. And back, toes, and back. Because we want to balance everything so we can turn freely and start to whirl and pirouette and really move around with all of this. So then let's try turns behind us. So again, start here. Shift your left back, your right forward, so you're ready to turn to your left. Now pass the poi up behind your hips to turn, and then down behind your shoulders to turn back. Up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders. Do it a few times, up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders. Then shift your feet and do it the other way. Up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders, up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders. And again, figure out, does one of these feel more fluid? Because doing it this way, the poi are kind of going clockwise relative to you. When I'm looking that way, it's like they're going clockwise. And if I look this way, they're going counterclockwise. And all of this is only true if I'm remembering that the poi are coming forwards towards the bridge. If you shift your poi, if you switch the direction of your poi when you change which way you're facing, you're missing the point and you're not practicing all the variations. So make sure the poi are coming down the bridge or whatever's in front of you, down me, and then shift to the left, up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders, up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders, shift the other way, up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders, up behind the hips, down behind the shoulders, and practice whichever one feels like it needs practice. When you've got it all, you can do this. You start here and you think, oh, let's do a full turn towards the left shoulder. So we think up behind the hips. Then I shift my feet again, down behind the shoulders, back to where I started. If I want to go to the right, I step the left in front, up behind the hips, step the left around, down behind the shoulders, back to where I started. Then you can do this mixing up the different kinds of turns any way you want. So I could combine up behind the hips, rainbow in front. That'll become a hip reel when you do it continuously. But right now you can add a few beats up behind the hips, a few spins, rainbow. And the other way, up behind the hips, rainbow. And again, always look for which one's weaker and practice the weaker one more so that you're balancing everything. And pretty soon you'll have it both ways. And once you've got it both ways, you can turn to your left a couple times, rainbow, up behind the hips, rainbow, or to the right a few times, up behind the hips, rainbow, up behind the hips, rainbow. And keep making sure, have you changed, because I see people often, without thinking about it, they switch directions to do whatever feels easier, and that's where you'll develop really weak links in your chain, because you'll kind of end up doing the same thing instead of practicing the thing that needs practice. So keep checking, are your poi coming down your landmark? So again, we start, there we are we coming down the landmark? Good. I'm going to shift my right foot in front, get ready to turn to my left, and now I'm going to do past the toes, behind the shoulders. Toes, shoulders, toes, shoulders. Those will become shoulder reels when you loop them continuously. Or I can shift my feet the other way. And again, I gotta check, am I coming down my landmark still? Am I still starting from forwards? Past my toes, down behind my shoulders, toes, down behind my shoulders. That will become shoulder reels in the other direction. Counterclockwise shoulder reels. And then ultimately, it'll become whirling with reels, which is a little precarious on this rock, surrounded by other rocks. So that's where we're at right now, and it's super important that make sure you're not spinning this way, turning on one side, then switching the direction of the spin to do the other side, because that's actually doing the same turn twice. The important thing is to make sure pick your landmark, make sure you're spinning towards your landmark, and then you can check turning this way, and then you'll be getting it. I hope that's working, let me know.